Hello everybody, my name is Mike Harrell and I'm making this little video, smoking my cigarettes and drinking my beer. I had some dreams the other night and they were kind of fun dreams. I'm not like a big dream person, but I did have some dreams the other night and I told my son, he said, "Oh wow, that's kind of interesting." And then a few nights later after that I had some more dreams that were related to the first dreams. And so I was talking to my son, and he says, "Dad, you're having a download." And it's one of my favorite things. I like to go on YouTube. I spend a lot of time on the internet. I go on YouTube, and I like to see people who have just amazing downloads. They start off as regular people, and then something comes to them, and then they connect it to everything, and then they do the research, and then end up talking about it, and it's pretty marvelous stuff. It seems like that's how, what do you call it, the good stuff that human beings get up to and human beings know come from downloads. You can, if you have the download first and you have that question or that wondering or that gift given to you, and then you go and do, your research and all that kind of stuff. That's what fills in the blanks and puts flesh on the bones of what it is that's given to you in dreams and visions and feelings and intuitions. But if you do it the other way around, it'll also work. I mean, you can just hit your books, study one thing, history or metaphysics or something, study like that for years and years, and then, that kind of the connections will also made. But that's sort of like one way is the download way is to take direct inspiration from life. So it's life explaining life. It's consciousness explaining consciousness. And when you go to the other way, that was somebody else's download. So you're actually reading the dead words on dead paper written by dead men in the dead past. So there's always that element of like it's stale, it's more stale. And then you who are doing the investigation have to put life into it. That's my perspective. So it's a lot more fun, or what do you call it, more juicy when you have a direct download first and then do your research to back it up. Well, I'm going to name names here because I want to blame somebody. I like blaming people. I want to blame somebody for my download, and I'm going to blame this fellow out in East Texas called Thomas Hughes. Thomas Hughes is a real interesting guy. I'm from Texas too, and he's a real interesting guy. He's like a 6'6" redneck who just happens to talk to animals and Sasquatch and things like that. But the fact that he talks to animals and Sasquatch and ETs and beings like that, that to me was like only only held my interest because these kind of things don't, I just feel like that's kind of like a normal extension of reality. But it was more his relationship to nature, his relationship to the history of what's going on Earth, and his relationship to himself, and his integrity of just being a guy who is out there living his life and has these extraordinary things happening to him, and at the same time not overwhelmed by them. Yeah. So anyway, he did a nice interview with Lisa Harrison, which I think is a really good. She's a really good interviewer, and she's attracting like some pretty amazing interviews. There's only a couple of them that I had issues with, but the rest of them were like just outstanding. So Thomas Hughes is how I got introduced to him, was doing an interview with Lisa Harrison. She has a YouTube channel. And then from that I thought, well, this guy's really interesting because he's like a redneck. I'm a redneck, you know. I'm a carpenter and an old guy, and he's got feelings about his place on Earth and what he's doing here, and you know, that stuff would kind of really interest me. And he's like tuning into stuff. But when he tunes into stuff, it's a little bit like when I tune into stuff. It's like, well, it's no big deal, but this is just kind of like the way it is. And instead of being, you know, airy-fairy about it, just like, well, this is just the way it is. So I did some research on him and listened to some of his other posts that he has. Turns out he's like a, you know, a certain part of him is he's an Indian mix, and he works with the indigenous Indian people out in Texas, and he works on a radio with them. And Indians are funny because not that I know that many Indians, but they have this way of communicating this is different. I mean, they'll talk about regular stuff, you know, and then they talk about something that's outrageously mind-blowing, and then they go back to talking about regular stuff because to them it's like that's where they live. It's not, you know, it's not astounding. It's astounding to us. So, you know, white people are people didn't grow up with that culture, but it's not that astounding to them. They just like, well, this is what life is, you know, nature and a great spirit and all this kind of stuff. And anyway, so you kind of have to understand that white people are not going to ever understand, you know, Indians, the indigenous people, because they can't index those kinds of reality. They didn't grow up feeling like the tree is a god, the air is a god, the water is a god, the rocks are God, the animals are gods. So they're all brothers and messengers and part of the mix, and that we are just one part of that mix. That's their fundamental reality, and that's not a white people's fundamental reality. We've got a completely different thing going on. So I just mentioned that he does TV shows with the elders and talks about issues, not TV shows, but radio shows. And that's part of other things he does. He also does a lot of other things. But anyway, enough about him. I just want to blame him for everything because I don't like taking responsibility. So I found him on Facebook and just chat him up, said a few things, and said I really respect what he's doing. And sure enough, he hit me back and said, you know, give me a number, let's talk. So we talked on the phone a little bit, and we cracked jokes about, you know, life and spiritual stuff, and you know, it was a really good little talk to him. And I only talked to him once, and that it was good. It was like I felt a good connection with this guy, but it's like, you know, there's no news here. You know, just another being who's doing stuff. So I didn't think any too much about it. Went on about my business, and then I guess it was about 3 or 4 nights later I had this dream. And the dream, I don't dream, you know, it's like my dreams are like, I might see one blob of something moving along, and that's my dream. It's like, well, you know, it's just not, I'm not a big dream activator guy. So I'm having this dream, start to have this dream, and in the beginning of the dream, these, I think there was two Indian elders. 2 Indian elders come to me and say, come here, we want you to talk to somebody. And in my dream, I couldn't see him, but it was like, you don't have to see him. I just knew that there were two Indian guys, you know, and they were saying, "Come here, we want you to talk to somebody." It's a dream, so what can it hurt? So I said, "All right, let's go." So I followed them, right? And all of a sudden, I'm out in some place, I don't know, desert, mountain, I don't know where it is. I'm out there somewhere, and they say, "Here, go over here and sit there." So I said, "Okay." So I'm sitting on a rock, next to a rock. I'm going, okay. And next thing I know, I start hearing a voice. And the voice says, "I created you." And I'm kind of looking around in my dream going, you know, I didn't even, I was just kind of like, it wasn't questioning. I was like, I was just kind of receiving. "I created you." So, okay. And then it was sort of like the image of who are you, where are you, what are you? And then I realized that there was like this being sitting next to me. Here again is a dream, so I didn't really see real clear. I'm not good at that. So there's this being sitting next to me, and he said, "I created you," and I said, "Okay, cool." And it was then that I realized that I was talking to a rock, and it wasn't just any rock. It was like the consciousness of rock. It was like the father, or like Father Rock, or the Elder Rock, something like that. And so I said, "Well, okay, that's cool." And he said, "I am this earth, and I created you." And I just like, but at that point, I kind of knew something was going on. My job was there just to listen. So I was listening, and he said, "From me, I am the male side of this earth, and the female side is water. From me came water. And when water, when water and rock get together, when they touch and they unite, they create life." And he said, in the beginning of this planet, that's what we did. It was rock, the water came, and as soon as the water came and touched the rock, we created life. And we've been creating life ever since. Everything that's created is created from the rock and the water. I thought, well, that's pretty cool. And then, but you see, this isn't coming in words in a consciousness stream. This is coming with images. This is coming with feelings. This is coming with memories. This is coming with kind of waves of understanding. And in my dreams, that's how it was coming. And then he went on to say, when we created life in the water, the life that we created made rocks. The first lives that created made rocks. And I thought that's kind of cool. But it kept creating the water and the rock kept creating life. And then he kind of gave me these kind of waves of visions of how water is the female side of this earth, and the rock is the male side of this earth. And that's sort of in the physical form, but the earth itself is magnetic, and the consciousness of this earth, the soul of this earth, is actually female. It's Mother Earth. So that's not wrong. But Father Rock and Mother Ocean is not wrong either. That's just how it manifests. Just like every man has a woman in him and every woman has a man in her. It's kind of like that. This what he was actually talking about was the form of creation, and how the form of creation actually came to be. And he was talking about how there's a love that the water has for rock, and the attraction that rock has for water, that is sort of like this eternal, very bass drum beat that goes on in all of reality. He said there's no place on earth that rock doesn't want to connect, that water doesn't want to connect to rock. Water has to connect to rock. Water is married to rock. There's no place that water is suspended away from rock. Even when it's taken up into the air, it longs to fall back down to earth, onto the rocks. And that was kind of a really cool thing. And he was saying this is like a conscious love affair that goes on between rock and water, and that this creates life, that everything in this world is created. Trees live on the rock and they're fed by the water, and they reach the sky, and there was another part of the mix which I wasn't really all that clear about, and that is that the atmosphere was formed. An atmosphere is sort of like this interface between rock and water rises up to the air, and there's this whole kind of conscious dance that goes on, that the life that they created manifested this air that we breathe. So every animal is involved with air, and that air, brings consciousness and life, and it's a manifestation of the rock and the water and the life that rock and water created, which created not only more rocks, but it also created the air and everything else. So this is like a real primal, organic, root type of consciousness. And it went on from there. I mean, because it was like a download, and it was like these waves of connectedness and understandings would come. And I was shown, okay, in your own life, in your own body, in your body, when the little matter that is the father and the mother get together, the little physical mud that we're made from, the female cell and the male cell, when they get together, they create life. And that's how you start to come into existence. And then it gets to that point where, if you remember where he said, life that was created in the water created rock. The life created rock. And the water comes from that rock and creates more life. Well, this happens in our body too. What was shown to me was happens in our body too. When we grow, you have this like dynamics that happens with a very early embryo, and then at some point, that life that's in that water that was connected to the rock creates more rock. Inside of you, at some point, bones are formed, and you continue to grow and make rock, which is bones, calcium carbonate, whatever they call that stuff that make bones out of. It's pretty much a rock. And then as you continue to grow, that rock put out, that rock put out water, and the water that rock put out is blood. And that, the rock and the water, so the blood and the bones create the whole rest of your body. I thought this was kind of an interesting download, because who thought, it was like one of the biggest discounts we have, one of the biggest disregard is, oh, this body is, it's a flesh suit, it's a, or the earth is just physical matter, and it doesn't matter, it doesn't mean anything, and, it's discounted, held low, it's not important. What's important is spirit and heart and love and all that kind of junk. But this download was to say, no, your physical body came from the earth, and it is conscious, and it was created out of love, and your blood and your bones and everything cycles around in the same process that how life was created on this planet. And it's the same process that goes on in trees and animals and fish, and it's the same air that was created as the air you breathe. And there's this to make our engagement with Earth and this reality supremely intimate and personal. Your life is engaged in life, and it came from the life of this planet, and you are the life of this planet. Now you talk to an American Indian or an Aborigine in Australia, and they go, oh yeah, you didn't know that? That's how they live. We don't live like that. We live like, the mind is separate from the body, and the body is this useless hulk, and it's a coat you're going to cast off, and all this kind of stuff, which is kind of heartless, really. It's sort of like saying my father and mother mean nothing, I'm going to go off and do my own thing, when your father and mother is this earth. And so the heartlessness that's shown towards earth is a very personal thing. It's interesting how personal and intimate we are to this earth, and how it is truly not only in our physical form. The denial of our physical form is just astounding. This is your house. You're living in a house. The house is living in a house. Your body is a house, and we like, well, that's just a house. I can move out of this house and go to another house. Well, there's a heartlessness involved with that. Move out of this house and go to another house. This house is pretty nice. It was created out of love, personalized for you. It's a pretty nice house that you're living in. And the house has a consciousness. The house that is your body, and the house that is your earth, is one of the most profound and present loves that a human being can know. Again, the indigenous people know this. It is sort of like the rest of these enculturated people don't seem to know this. Most people understand that the love that the mother has for her child is the greatest love, and the child has back for the mother. But somehow we lose the connection between our own physical body, our physical mothers, our physical father, our own physical body, and our primal mother and father, water, rock, air, trees, nature. We lose that connection. And in my opinion, that's one of the things that's going on with this planet. So one of my downloads, one of my flavors of the download that I have is that this earth, the water, the air, and the consciousness of the earth itself is just supremely conscious and supremely loving. It's like allowing, letting, embracing all the life that's here and all the stuff that we do. I mean, it's okay. Animals kill animals. People kill people. That's all. That's all allowed. You know, tolerated. To let be. It doesn't mean that that's the way it could be or should be or the earth wants it to be. It's just allowed. The amount of acceptance that the consciousness of earth has for this creation is just amazing. So yeah, we are created from rock and water, and that rock and water made life, and then that life created more rocks. That's an interesting detail. It's like that. Well, that doesn't make sense. But you know, the life in the ocean creates these little hard shell microorganisms that fall to the ground, and it creates corals that make rock. And there's a lot of animals out there that make rock. And animals, when they die, what's left over is water and rock, it's dust and elements. Whatever transmuted it is, it still comes back to rock. So there's an increase. So there's to take from the water and rock, create life, and then the water and rock go back to being water and rock, but with an increase. There's more rock. That's an interesting little dynamics. And there's a consciousness that's involved in all that. There's a cycle of love, a cycle of generation, a cycle of life that's involved in all that. So anyway, I think that's good for the first part of this download. Again, one of the points being is that this earth is conscious. The rocks are conscious. The thing that you think is the least conscious thing that could ever imagine is a rock. Oh, that's the lowest form of vibration that there is. There's nothing stupider or less conscious or more unevolved than a rock. It just sits there. Not true. That rock had enough consciousness to create life on this planet. And it's you that have discounted the consciousness that you don't perceive. You hold superior only the little electric, ephemeral, mental, imaginary consciousness that you value so much. You've discounted. That is to say, you love one and hate the other. You prefer one and disdain the other. This is the consciousness that we carry forward into our, my thoughts create reality. So we can discount the earth and love spirit. We value what is living and the highest form of the living, moving beings, and we devalue on a scale all the way down to rocks. So worms is not as smart, and then you get down to rocks and animals and plants, and right? Until that's the lowest. You can abuse it any way you want, use it any way you want. That's not the way it is. That is the way you made it. That is the way you were taught. That's the way your sense perception and your teachers told you. That's not the way it is. Consciousness is consciousness, life is life. And the Creator goes from the infinitely small to the infinitely large, from the infinitely dense to the infinitely subtle. There is no separation. We make the separation, not reality doesn't make the situation. We make a separation. That we want that infinitely subtle bliss. And we want to get away from that infinitely dense, hard reality. We want to go to the, but there's self-hatred in that. There's denial in that. There's exclusiveness. There's not sympathetic. There's not sympathy. It's antipathy, antipathy, resist, push away, not embrace, not sympathy, not take in, not connect. And we're very divided. We're very divided because we only have the love and the light. We don't have the dark and the hard. It's all us. It's all one being. And to love one and deny the other, kind of on dangerous ground here. And that's kind of the theme here that I'm talking about is we are part of everything, not just one thing. We're part of everything, not just one thing, not just what you like, not just what you feel good, not just what your fantasies are. You're part of everything. You're part of the suffering, you're part of the pain, you're part of the joy, you're part of everything. You're part of the consciousness, you're part of the awake, but trust me, you're part of the sleeping too. When you're gone, your bones will be there. Your bones will outlast you. Isn't that funny? Well, anyway, I got more of this download, but I think I'll save that for like the round two. I'm not judging anybody here. I'm just saying this is my download. And since then, I've been given some indications of, historically the Indians think this way, the indigenous people around the world feel this way. In the Torah, they actually talk about creation came from a rock. This is not some kind of new revelation. This is an old foundation of realization that's been around way longer than civilization and even language. Before language, there was the great mystery of how life came to be on this planet and how we are part of it, not above it. Okay, let's say this. I feel a little bit like a soapbox. I'm not really trying to talk about a soapbox. I'm just talking about bringing a different kind of a balance back into our relationship with this earth and who we are and the right relationship. We're not kings and the crowns of creation. We're just part of, like every other animal. We're part of the rocks and the water and the air, and we're not above, supreme, entitled in any way, shape, or form. That's not our family. That's not the true relationship of the family. And I got some other things to say about the Father of manifestation, which is to say the Father of form. This is his house. This rock that created this is his house. And you discount him, not knowing the love that he has for you. That's very interesting. That you can turn your back on the creator of form. Everybody loves the creator of spirit, but the brother of the creator of spirit is form. They didn't go to form or us. They didn't go to, manifest reality. Out of that consciousness came form, and form itself is consciousness. Form is consciousness. Form is consciousness. The form of government, the form of relationship, the form of your body, the form of your thoughts, the form of everything is consciousness. There is a God of form as well as there's a God of spirit and a God of heart and a God of will. There's a God of form, and this has been discounted. And in this time of everybody talking about wakey, wakey, You're going to have to awaken to form too, because that's part of the mix. That's who you are. First, you're form. Without your form, you're formless. And being formless, you have no power, no connection, no continuity, no history, and no time. You're basically just floating around out there. You need form. You need the form of time, the form of thoughts, the form of words, the form of love, the form of patterns. You need those forms, the form of this earth, the form of the stars, the form of the galaxies, the form of the universe. You need those things in order to be fully who you are, to embrace the totality of who you are. If you discount form, it's like saying, well, I don't like this about myself, I like that. It's like self-hatred. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong here, or maybe I've been too harsh, but heartlessness is like a big deal on this planet. You know, oh, I like this and not that, and these guys are good and those guys are bad. The division is like this whole antithetical movement. This antipathy is just, I'm not really sure that's the way to use your discernment. But anyway, this is fun. It's fun because stuff keeps coming to me. Stuff keeps coming to me about this particular download, and I think I'll talk about the next one in another video.